Secretary of State, I think it's fruit. Sorry, fruit, I think.
Oh, yes, sorry. And with permission, Mr Speaker, I will answer this with question 3.
Yeah, we'll live with that, Gretchen.
Can I thank the Secretary of State for that answer? In Spelthorne, we love our sport, and I was playing walking cricket last week with the cricket club. I've been in the ring at the boxing academy. I've been to the darts academy, and we've got Spelthorne FC, we've got Staines Lammas FC, and we have got Ashford Middlesex FC, and I'm inviting the member for Windsor on Saturday to come and watch Windsor and Eton play against my Ashford Middlesex team, and we look forward to a fantastic game. But the jewel in our crown is the Year 11's girls football team at Thamesmead School, who are in the last 32 of the country. And so can she wish them the huge amount of success that we all hope they're going to get when they play the Beacon Academy from Kent on the...
We'll have finished. Come on, Secretary of State.
Well, can I say that we have just announced the first allocations of the 400 million that we're investing into grassroots sport, but I would pay a lot of money to see the honourable gentleman at a dance academy. And can I take the opportunity to wish Thamesmead and both teams, actually, the best of success with what should be a fantastic competition.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Now, swimming isn't just a sport, it's a very important life skill, particularly for those of us that represent coastal communities. Unfortunately, though, there are over 1,600 swimming pools across the country that are now more than 40 years old. The previous government committed £80 million to renovating those swimming pools. So can I ask the Secretary of State or the Minister what their plans are to continue the legacy of the last government and improve our swimming facilities?
Well, can I thank him for that question? And I think many honourable members will thank him for that question as well. It's something that has been raised with myself and the Sports Minister by members of Parliament consistently over recent years. The Minister for Sport is working very closely with a counterpart at MHCLG to make sure that we address this issue. We've obviously made more funding available. We need to now make sure that it gets to the right places so that every child can access good swimming provision in their local area.
Shadow Minister Louis French.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I refer honourable members to my register of interests. I would like to offer our congratulations on behalf of this side of the House to everyone at Team GB for an incredible Winter Olympic performance. Like many people across this House, I was glued to the excellent coverage during recess, and I was pleased to see online that the Sports Minister was in Milan supporting the team. But we all know that the true value of Team GB's success is their ability to inspire the next generation of athletes. So I asked the Secretary of State, what steps is she taking to secure the legacy of these games, both in terms of the elite and grassroots facilities required for sports to succeed?
Secretary of State.
Thank you. And the Sports Minister has just told me that more than 4,000 people have expressed an interest in skeleton following the Team GB fantastic performance. So it really does show the power of what these things can do. It was an absolute privilege as well to be out in Milan cheering on Team GB during the most successful Winter Olympics ever. He's absolutely right that what we've got to do now is to make sure that there is a lasting legacy of this to bring forward the next generation. One of the things that I discussed with the team when I was out there in Milan was also making sure that, as well as committing future funding to make sure that our athletes can succeed, bringing people through from the grassroots, as we've just been discussing, that we also recognise in our honours system the people who helped those incredible athletes to get to where they were along that journey. Not just the people who've succeeded, not just the people who've won medals, but it's about time and long overdue that our honours system recognised the grassroots, ordinary men and women who help people to go on to do extraordinary things.
With French.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for that answer, and I'm sure we all echo her comments. She will be aware of the widespread concerns regarding the government's plans to water down the powers of Sport England and much-needed protection for grassroots pitches. Just before Christmas, leading sports figures led by former Lioness Jill Scott and Fields and Trust wrote an open letter highlighting their concerns for people's health, well-being and sports more generally if the government allows for sports pitches across the country to be concreted over. So I asked the Secretary of State, what action is her department taking personally to try and force the government to U-turn on this bad policy decision? Thank you.
Well, look, can I just say to him that this government believes that we need a much more sensible and much lighter touch system of regulation in this country. And I think, in principle, that is something that members on both sides of the House should be able to agree with. But what we don't want to see is a reduction in the grassroots facilities that are available to communities. And the Sports Minister has been working with the Housing Minister and Sport England. They met recently to discuss this, to make sure that we have a sensible way of proceeding that sees no reduction in the amount of facilities that are available.
James S.
Number 4, sir.
Minister.
Our National Youth Strategy sets out our plan to ensure every young person has somewhere to go, something to do and someone who cares. It's backed by over £500 million of DCMS funding over the next 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency, North Woolwich, I have based Fight for Peace, which is a boxing and martial arts facility that also delivers employment skills and education skills for young people, helping divert them from gangs and knife crime. But like so many organisations over the last few years, they've faced a tough time. Does the Minister agree with me that organisations such as this, who support over 1,300 people and employ over 50, are vital for our urban and inner city communities like mine? And what more can the government do to secure their future? And can I extend an invite for them to visit me in North Woolwich to see the fantastic work they do?
Well, I'm grateful to the Honourable Gentleman. Boxing clubs like Fight for Peace play a huge role in supporting young people's physical and mental health. Through Sport England, England Boxing will receive over £9 million of funding between 2022 and 2029. I recently met with the Boxing All-Party Group and I'd be delighted to meet with him and indeed visit his constituency.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Caroline Downey.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. We all know that actions speak louder than words, and what we've seen so far is a reduction in the urban cricket domes that were committed to by the last government, the scrapping of our National Citizenship Service without anything to replace it, and now supposedly an argument over who's going to be funding school sport. Social mobility depends upon participation. Research by Sky found that girls who play after-school sport in the UK are 50% more likely to later get professional roles as adults. What is the government actually doing? Can the Minister give us grassroots examples in our urban communities of where things are improving and not actually getting worse?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to the Chair of the Select Committee and indeed for the work she does, and it was a pleasure to meet her again yesterday. I don't recognise her representation of cricket domes. The previous government simply didn't fund them. This government did and has announced 2 new ones, alongside the £400 million of grassroots sports funding that the Secretary of State referred to. And of course, she references the National Citizen Service. We, of course, announced our National Youth Strategy, the first in over 10 years. Question number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is championing the UK's living heritage, the crafts, the customs and festivals important for local pride and community cohesion. Following the ratification of the 2003 UNESCO Convention, we are inviting communities to submit their traditions to inventories of living heritage in the UK. Some examples of living heritage, Mr. Speaker: up Heliah in Shetland, for example, the Notting Hill Carnival. Some might even argue the member for Strangford.
Rachel Hawkins, don't encourage him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The end of May will mark the 50th Luton International Carnival, the UK's largest one-day carnival, and I think 50 years qualifies as a UK tradition, Mr. Speaker, because it's definitely a Luton tradition. So does the Minister agree with me that events such as Luton Carnival are vital in celebrating the rich cultural diversity of our country and strengthening community cohesion? And may I invite him to Luton to join in with Carnival this year?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be delighted to go to Luton Carnival because it sounds slightly less scary than participating in Skeleton. We would welcome a submission to the Living Heritage inventories for Luton Carnival, which is an important event in my honourable friend's constituency, as she has laid out. And congratulations to everyone involved in organising the Carnival, not just now, but in the last 50 years. We want to celebrate the UK's diversity and encourage diaspora communities to contribute, ensuring all practices are fully represented in our Living Heritage inventories. I will pass your kind invitation, as well as to me, on to the Minister for Heritage in the other place, who I know had an enjoyable time learning about Luton's rich heritage when she visited last year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There is no finer UK tradition lived out still than drinking a cold beer and watching your local cricket team that have been there for decades. I recently visited St Anne's Cricket Club. I should declare an interest. My dad was the professional there in 1973. He probably will not thank me for saying that that declaration is probably now time expired. But those clubs have relied on the revenue from those bars to support that wonderful tradition for many years. But the changes in national insurance costs and other cost pressures have completely eliminated the profits many of those clubs make and are struggling to reinvest into facilities. So what more support will the government be announcing for our traditional British cricket clubs in the future?
Minister.
He makes a great point, and congratulations to his father at St Abbs Cricket Club being the professional in 1973, I think you said, because if you get into trouble for saying it, I've just said it as well. So, look, we know our cricket clubs and all our sports clubs are right at the heart of our communities. We want them to thrive. They should be thriving. This government is fully committed to making sure all our sports clubs thrive, because it's not just about enjoying that cricket with a cold beer, as he says that he does, as many hundreds of thousands do every Saturday, but it's also about young people being involved and the way in which that takes them into the future of work and the future of sport.
Come.
Number 6, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In December, we published Youth Matters, the first national youth strategy that this country has had in nearly 2 decades. The Youth Investment Fund and Better Youth Spaces Fund have together invested £750,000 in youth services in Perry Bar, and we've recently announced an additional £100,000 of funding for Birmingham to undertake preparatory work for the Young Futures Hub and local youth transformation.
Welcome.
Mr Speaker, I know that I wouldn't be in this House the mother of all democracies, and certainly wouldn't be a barrister if I didn't benefit from youth centres in my ward of Aston, and I recognise how important they are. We've lost somewhere in the region of 50 youth workers in Birmingham. My constituency of Birmingham Perry Bar lost out on the Pride of Place funding, which is £20 million, which we could have benefited from. Given the importance of youth centres, and the loss of Oakland's youth centre in my constituency, Lozal's recreation group, which is at risk of closing down, I asked the Minister if she'd meet with me and representatives of youth clubs in my constituency to see how we can ensure that that service remains within my area.
Yeah, can I thank him for that? And I absolutely share his assessment about the vital role of youth provision and the devastating impact that 73% cuts to youth provision under the last government made to the life chances of young people. The Sports Minister would be more than happy to meet with him to discuss this issue.
Ian Sollum, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. According to the Office for National Statistics, 3.8 million people report feeling lonely, with young people consistently amongst the loneliest groups. And is it any wonder when we have seen youth centres shuttered and libraries boarded up and the very places that bring people together hollowed out? The Liberal Democrats have a plan to change this, to create a new wave of third spaces centred around something simple but incredibly powerful: shared hobbies. We want to bring people with shared interests together, creating places where these can thrive. So could the Minister tell me what she's doing to tackle loneliness through rebuilding community life and shared experience? And will she seriously consider our proposals for a bold new wave of hobby hubs to help restore the social fabric of our communities?
Just before you do, it is linked to Perry Bar in Birmingham. I think he's slightly well away from Birmingham, and I'm not quite sure that it links into youth services. Good luck.
I am sure, Mr Speaker, that the people of Birmingham Perry Bar are clamouring for a hobby hub. And in that spirit, I'll address the very important point that he makes. Our National Youth Strategy is the first time that we've put young people in the driving seat of their own lives. We handed over money and power to a generation of young people who told us that they needed 3 things. They needed somewhere to go, something to do, and someone who cares. That's why we're investing in the next generation of youth centres and youth workers. And to the chair of the Select Committee's point, I was delighted a couple of weeks ago to be in Grimsby, where we opened an on-side youth zone that had people queuing for miles down the road to come in and see the incredible provision that we've been able to fund and to back. I'll certainly consider the proposal that he's making and be very keen to work with him as we help to rebuild youth work and youth centres, connect people to one another and turn around over a decade of decline.
Peter Swallow.
Question number 7, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Well, in December, we published Youth Matters, the first government strategy for over a decade for young people up and down the country. This will, of course, run alongside other major government investments, including the Youth Guarantee and expansion of mental health support teams in schools.
Speaker, last week I dropped into the Ways Youth Centre in Bracknell to celebrate its 60th anniversary. That's 60 years of supporting young people in Bracknell Forest, developing their skills and helping them find and use their voice. This is a government that is backing the Youth Centre with our National Youth Strategy, which young people from the Ways contributed to. I'm delighted the government has announced more capital funding to support youth centres after many years of neglect. Can I ask my honourable friend what specific funding pots are available for the Ways? Because when your youth centre is 60 years old, there's always need to invest in the day-to-day upkeep.
Well, I pay tribute to the honourable gentleman, who is a strong champion for his constituency and indeed for all the work of Ways over the last 60 years. The strategy is backed by £500 million of new funding, £350 million of which will be available till the end of March 2030 to refurbish or build youth facilities through our Better Youth Spaces programme. We are committed to working with areas of greatest need across the length and the breadth of England, and I'll write further to him.
Question 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have not had personally any discussions with my counterpart in the Hellenic Republic on the future of the management of the sculptures. The sculptures are legally owned by the trustees of the British Museum. The chair of the British Museum has been in discussions with the Greek government about a partnership, including reciprocal loans.
Drew George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm grateful to the Minister for that response. And I should declare an interest as a chair of the British Association for the Reunification of the Parthenon sculptures over the last 20 years. The British Museum's planned redevelopment will necessitate its board agreeing the relocation of many of its exhibits, including the Parthenon sculptures. And in the light of this, it is suggested that the time is now right for the museum, with the consent of government and support and constructive support of government, to facilitate an exhibition of those sculptures in the Acropolis Museum in Athens, where they can be displayed alongside other artefacts there. Would ministers agree that should such a project be agreed between the museum, that this would enhance the reputation of the United Kingdom, as it would be seen as a gracious act between two nations that have long-term international allies?
Minister.
Well, thank you for the question, and it's clear that the UK and Greece do indeed have a strong bilateral relationship built on, of course, our shared history and our values. We greatly value that friendship that exists between our people and our governments today. It is for the British Museum to seek to reach an agreement with the Greek government on the loan of the sculptures, as the British Museum is operationally independent from government, as he knows with his long track record on this. But if they do reach an agreement, the government wouldn't stand in the way of such a loan.
Gareth Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, the clearly remarkable Faye Bond took up athletic... Question 9, I beg your pardon.
Minister.
The government is committed to ensuring people of all ages should have the opportunity to maintain an active lifestyle. Sport England annually invests over £250 million of lottery and exchequer funding into grassroots sport to support people of all ages, and this includes multiple campaigns designed to encourage active lifestyles.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Try again, Mr. Speaker. The clearly remarkable Faye Bond took up athletics at the age of 90, winning 3 gold medals last year at the age of 101 at the US Senior Olympics. The oldest of over 12,400 older athletes who took part. Given the many benefits of an active lifestyle in later life, when does my honourable friend think that the first UK Senior Olympics might take place?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Team GB at the Winter Olympics. It was a real pleasure to be out in Italy cheering them on in what was their most successful Winter Games yet. Now, I pay tribute to his constituent. We want everyone, whatever their age, to be able to be active, and we're always interested to hear ideas about future major sporting events.
Dress little Fox.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bridgewater is the home of Carnival. At nearly 180 years old, it's the oldest carnival in the UK. And this fantastic cultural event promotes an active lifestyle amongst the whole community. However, Mr. Speaker, every year the cost of complying with legislation makes it that little bit harder to continue. So will the Minister meet with members of the Carnival and me to discuss what support might be available so that this fantastic spectacle continues for another 180 years?
It's a shoe-on question. Good luck.
I'm aware of the issue, and I'd be delighted to meet the honourable member to discuss it further.
Look clever.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 10, please.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We encourage local authorities to continue to work in partnership with key players in local arts ecosystems such as Arts Council England and make the most of the opportunities provided by the mayoral strategic authorities to deliver strategically for culture in their areas. Furthermore, the Government is providing substantial financial support to local governments, committing an additional £3.4 billion in grant funding by 28-29. This commitment is underpinned by the Creative Industry Sector Plan, which includes a £150 million Creative Places Growth Fund to support.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Local councils in my Oxfordshire constituency of Didcot and Wantage work hard to secure public arts funding through developer contributions for our growing population. However, some existing cultural venues are struggling. The much-loved Vale and Downland Museum in Wantage is having to rely on one-off grants to plug funding gaps and has had an annual average deficit of £24,000 per year since 2020. So in that context, what more can the Minister do to help our local councils provide funding for museums and cultural venues in my part of Oxfordshire?
Okay. Minister. Mr Speaker, the honourable gentleman raised a very good point. Our Museums Renewal Fund, worth £20 million, has supported 3 museum groups in Oxfordshire, including Vale and Downland Museum in his own constituency. Our new Museum Transformation Programme and a 5% funding uplift for the ACE National Portfolio Organisation and the Museum Development Network will further support the museum sector in 26-27. Museums in difficulty are encouraged to reach out to Arts Council England as they can provide guidance and support. And can I encourage him maybe to enter the Town of Culture competition, which has been very popular with local members all across this chamber, to maybe see if he can get some more funding in that way.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Stafford Gatehouse Theatre is absolutely smashing it in my constituency of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villagers. Welcomed 150,000 people last year, likely to welcome 170,000 this year, and the pantomime alone welcomed 19,500 people. Oh yes, it did.
Oh no, it didn't.
Thank you. Does the Minister agree with me that thriving venues like this in towns like Stafford demonstrate the appetite for culture in our local places? And could the Minister tell me what they're doing to support towns like Stafford?
Minister.
Well, thank you for being a wonderful champion for Stafford and for culture and arts in Stafford. We announced in February £1.5 billion over this Parliament for the arts everywhere. A fund that's broken down into making sure we can support an infrastructure in every part of the country. But the Secretary of State's commitment and the Department's commitment is to make sure there's arts and culture everywhere for everyone, and we'll do everything we possibly can as a Department to make sure that gets to Stafford.
Mayor.
11, please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. She is a fantastic champion for young people in her constituency, and she will know, having worked with us to deliver the first national youth strategy in decades, that we are allocating over £500 million worth of funding for youth provision over the next 3 years. But most importantly, she will also know that the way that we're funding is changing. Rather than impose settlements on communities for things that they didn't ask for and didn't need, our funding is driven by the grassroots, by what communities need. If they need a new building, if they need transportation, if they need different facilities, whatever it is that they need, we will pay for.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I really welcome the universal approach of our new youth strategy, but I worry that in constituencies like mine in Ribble Valley, where communities are small and often far away from city centre youth hubs, young people often miss out on support because their family may be just about managing, but dual career households and long hours leave little time to taking children to activities. This country has an inequality problem, but it also has a productivity problem, and I've welcomed conversations with the Work and Pension Secretary on how we can unlock real entrepreneurship, ambition and opportunity for young people to not only reduce unemployment rates, but also to unlock and capitalise on the incredible energy and ideas that come from our young people. So how is she ensuring that while we rightly provide those with most need really youth support, we are also providing a third space of ideas and creativity to all young people?
I'd be very keen to work with her to make sure that we get the right funding for the right provision in her constituency. And can I just say to her, I'm working, obviously, as she would expect, very closely with the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions and the Education Secretary to make sure that we hang on to young people from the earlier stage all the way through into adulthood. But as somebody who represents a very rural constituency myself, I absolutely recognise the challenges she talked about. That is why we're doing this differently, led by the grassroots, and I'd be very happy to talk to her about how we deliver for people in Ribble Valley.
Mr Speaker, it's all very well the Secretary of State talking about her version of support for youth services, but it's of little consolation to young people who can't get a job because youth unemployment is up under this government. Will she relay that message to the Chancellor?
First of all, he talks about my version of support. It's not my version of support, actually. This government has put this generation of young people that was so badly let down by his government over many years back in the driving seat of their own lives. This is not my strategy. This is their strategy, and we're determined to deliver on their promise. And can I say to him, too, that it's a bit rich for somebody on his side of the House to sit there and talk about letting down a generation of young people after the devastation that they wreaked on a generation for so long. And the fact that in the budget, as he well knows, we announced investment in young people to make sure that the 1 million young people that they left on the scrap heap, not in education, employment and training, now have guaranteed work, education or training as of right. What did his party do? They opposed every single measure in that budget. They opposed all of the ways that we proposed to pay for it, and they labelled this a boost to welfare provision, when he knows full well that this is the lifeline that young people have been waiting for.
You go to Topicals, David Chadwick.
Question number 1, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many members across the House have raised with me their deep concern following the broadcast of a highly offensive racial slur during the BBC's broadcast of the BAFTAs. As members would expect, I was in contact with the Director General immediately following that broadcast, and I am pleased that there is now an investigation ongoing to ensure that this never happens again. Can I also take the opportunity to congratulate Team GB on the most successful Winter Olympics ever, and to update the House that since we last met, we have unveiled the biggest investment into the arts in history. This government is committed to ensuring that the arts really are for everyone, everywhere.
David Chadwick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite that spirited performance this weekend, Welsh rugby is in crisis, with clubs demanding a vote of no confidence and supporters fearing a stitch-up that wipes the Ospreys off the map, ending professional rugby in Swansea. Does the Minister agree with me that the WRU leadership has lost the confidence of the grassroots game and should step aside?
Can I say to him that rugby union plays a vital role in our national identity? It matters hugely to many members of the House, almost as much as rugby league, the finest form of rugby. But I do appreciate the serious concerns that Welsh rugby fans, including him, have at the moment. He knows that the UK government has no role in the operations of Welsh Rugby Union. Welsh sports policy is the responsibility of the Welsh Government and Sport Wales, and I would strongly suggest that the honourable member should raise his serious concerns with them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having seen youth services slashed by the coalition government and Staffordshire's youth service shut down completely 13 years ago, I very much welcome this government's commitment to £500 million to reverse the damage done by the parties opposite. In Staffordshire, we missed out on the Better Youth Spaces programme, so as the department rolls out Youth Futures Hubs, youth centres and more youth workers, could the Minister assure my constituents that areas like Cannock Chase that have no youth service whatsoever will benefit from Labour's reinvestment in the futures of our young people?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. Youth services, of course, saw a 73% reduction in England under the last government. Too many areas like his then had no youth services. That's why our national youth strategy, backed by over £500 million, is reversing that trend, and I'd be happy to discuss it further with him.
Right, we go to Shadow Secretary of State, Nigel Huddles.
Thank you. As mentioned a moment ago by the Secretary of State, at this week's BAFTA Awards, a great celebration of British creativity was marred by the unnecessary airing of involuntary comments by Tourette's campaigner John Davidson. It appears a microphone was placed close to John and some offensive comments were aired despite a 2-hour delay. This no doubt well-intended attempt at inclusivity has caused great anxiety to John and great offence to many others. So does the Secretary of State agree that the BBC and BAFTA must not only investigate this matter, but also apologise?
So I'm grateful to him for raising this, and also to the chair of the Select Committee, who I know has raised her concerns directly with the BBC as well. He will have heard what I said a moment ago. I think it's fair to say that this government and I were not satisfied with the initial response from the BBC, and we do need to see much swifter action taken in these sorts of instances, and action that results in this not happening again. I think we're all deeply concerned that there have been too many incidents of this kind. Can I also thank him for the sensitive way in which he raised this, because we all want to make sure that the BAFTAs and all of our award ceremonies can be inclusive places where people with Tourette's who've been shut out of society for too long can be fully included. My honourable friend, the Minister for the Arts, has met with BAFTA this week to talk about how we exercise a better duty of care to all concerned going forwards.
Nigel Huddleston.
I thank the Secretary of State for that response. Now, when the Labour government cut the budget for the listed places of worship scheme, it was suggested that we shouldn't worry because it never runs out of money. Well, it has now run out of money. And as the details for a new scheme have not yet been announced, uncertainty is growing and vital repair work is being postponed or cancelled altogether. So will the government now follow the Conservative lead and commit to fully restoring the budget for the listed places of worship scheme and commit to releasing information about the new scheme as a matter of urgency?
Look, he knows that this is something that is important to this government. These incredible buildings and places of worship stand at the centre of our communities, and it matters deeply that we preserve and protect them. But he will also know that there were serious challenges with the previous scheme, including the fact that his government left the economy in such a parlous state that there was no funding available going forwards, despite their commitments. We have committed to a new scheme that ensures that we can get funding not just to those places that can already raise the money for their own buildings, but to those places where money is in short supply. We are designing that scheme and we will bring forward details of that shortly.
John Whitney.
There are a growing number of ex-footballers suffering from CTE, a form of dementia caused by a repeated heading of the ball. These ex-players have been felt let down by the PFA, which has only provided support for those suffering from CTE once funding from the NHS, social services and family assets have been exhausted, leaving taxpayers rather than football bodies footing the bill for care. What steps is the Minister taking to ensure that our heroes of the game are given appropriate support in their hour of need, and to ensure that competition organisers provide adequate funding for ex-players with CTE?
Minister.
I know this is a concern to members across the House. I've met with and corresponded with a number. It's an issue that is incredibly important to both myself and the Secretary of State, who met with players impacted by this to hear their stories. I will be hosting a roundtable discussion shortly with the football bodies to explore what more can be done. Our priority is for the Football Authority to provide greater clarity on funding available and ensure there is enough money available to provide those impacted with the support they need.
Swain.
My honourable friend for Old Bexley has drawn our attention to the fact that Sport England is losing its consultee status. This is at a time when sports clubs are facing business rate increases by as much as 46%. Are ministers alive to the prospect of sporting facilities becoming increasingly attractive building propositions as grey belt?
They are not losing their status. There's a consultation. Myself and the Planning Minister have met a number of times on this. Having committed £400 million to the grassroots sports, we of course don't want to see playing fields and grassroots sports reduced.
In coming years, Cambridge, like many other places, will see many new homes being built, but we need to build communities, not just houses, and a cultural component is absolutely key to that. So can the Minister tell us what he's doing to make sure that happens?
Minister.
Yes, Mr Speaker, it's not just about building homes and building economic drivers, it's about building cultural and heritage communities as well. It's fantastic to see so many infrastructure projects taking shape across Cambridgeshire and Cambridge this year. Cambridge already has a fantastic cultural offer, with Arts Council England's national portfolio programme already supporting organisations like the new International Encounter and Oblique Arts, both of which work with communities across the region. I would encourage him to ask all of his cultural organisations to look at the £1.5 billion Arts Everywhere Fund that was announced last month, that record funding, and maybe City or Town of Culture.
Callum Anderson. Rishi Sunak.
Richmond, North Yorkshire is home to brilliant cultural assets like the Richmond Castle, Georgian Theatre, the station and the Green Howards Museum. It has a unique place in our national story with a history stretching back to Norman times and a history of successfully putting on community events like Mayfest. Mr Speaker, it is also, this gateway to the Dales is also the UK's most copied place name, the original Richmond with 100 across the world from America to India. So can I ask the Secretary of State to join me in congratulating Richmond Yorkshire's Community Interest Company, who are putting a great bid together to be the UK's town of culture.
Well, can I thank him for his championing of Richmond's town of culture. bid, I've been following with interest the work that the Community Interest Company is doing there. They've brought together an incredible group of people and gathered huge public support for the bid. And the question that the Mayor of Richmond asked recently was, why not Richmond? I would absolutely concur with those remarks and encourage them to continue.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The National Youth Strategy offers us a once-in-a-generation opportunity to improve access to youth services for young people in Bracknell Forest and across the country. Can I ask my right honourable friend what discussions she has had with colleagues in the Ministry of Defence to tie this together with the Strategic Defence Review's target of expanding access to the cadet forces by 30% by 2030?
The 30 by 30 programme seeks to recruit 40,000 more cadets across the UK. We are working with the MOD to do this. They do incredibly important work and he raises an important issue.
Pete Wishaw.
On Saturday, the cream of UK music will gather at Manchester for the annual Brit Awards, and I'm sure the Honourable Lady would like to wish everybody all the best at that. UK music has grown for the 11th consecutive year, and UK artists are starting once again to re-emerge in global markets with the success of Lola Young and Olivia Dean. But there are issues. Artist remuneration, touring in Europe, and the threat of AI continues to emerge as threats. So will she continue to engage with the sector and assure that all these issues are addressed?
Can I thank him for that and say how absolutely delighted I am that the Brits will be held in Manchester this year, and I will of course be in attendance. But he raises a really serious point, and whether it's the work that we're doing on the voluntary levy to get funding into grassroots music venues, or the work that we're doing with the music industry to solve the challenges posed by the AI and copyright issue, he is absolutely right to say that we need to work to support what is not just an incredible industry that brings joy to millions of people all over the world, but something that is one of the UK's best exports.
Final question, Dame Chiomoro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Northern industry built this nation, but the previous government did not care about our industrial heritage. One reason why Newcastle's iconic swing bridge no longer swings. Now, the Minister for Heritage encouraged us to take the steps necessary to safeguard its future in a recent visit, but what help can she provide to support the necessary to get the swing bridge swinging?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I commend my honourable friend's campaign for Newcastle's swing bridge on its 150th anniversary year. I know my honourable friend in the other place has been dealing very closely with her on those issues. I understand Newcastle City Council is leading a feasibility study on returning the bridge to full operation, which should help to understand if and how this magnificent Grade 2 listed building can be, and scheduled monument can be brought back to life. And I share my honourable friend's aspiration to allow the bridge to swing.
Right, thank you. At the front bench, change over. We now come to questions to Church Commissioners, House of Commons Commission and Restoration and Renewal Client Board. We start with Charlie Dewhurst.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Right, question 1 goes to Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the Restoration and Renewal Client Board has recently published a report providing costed proposals for the R&R programme and a recommended way forward. The key recommendations are to commence a Phase 1 works package, including enabling works and the preparation of temporary accommodation, including a long-term resilience chamber. Reduce the number of delivery options from 4 to 2, with a final decision on a preferred option required by 2030. The next step, Mr. Speaker, is for parliamentary debates to be held so that members of both houses can consider the Client Board's recommendations and decide how to progress. The R&R team hold regular briefings and tours and detailed Q&A sessions, which the honourable gentleman may find of interest.
Charlie Dewhurst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, the London 2012 Olympics, 7 years, 7 billion. The World Trade Center rebuild in New York, 7 years, 3.9 billion. The restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, less than 5 years, less than 1 billion. And yet here we are with the cheapest option available to us, moving out for 24 years and 16 billion. I am sorry, but it stinks. It really does. And we need to look again at the entire proposals for the restoration and renewal of this place. Restoration is fine, and yes, we should all operate in a safe workplace. But frankly, I would ask the honourable member to go back to his board and look again at this entire proposal.
Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, can I agree with the Honourable Member that we should make much faster progress on this project? However, he talks about Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a much smaller footprint than our palace in Westminster. The bulk of the construction costs relate to the replacement and upgrade of mechanical, power, water and heating infrastructure, improvements to fire safety and the controlled management of asbestos and repaired stonework. Not enough has been invested in our palace over the years. Much more needs to be done. It needs to be done at good speed, but I accept the point to go further. Let's try and take members of both houses with us, however.
Jessica.
Question number 2, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Church remains a major investor in deprived communities, and funding for periods of 2026 to 2028 has reached a record £430 million, focusing on strengthening ministry and providing long-term support for lowest income communities. And this is in addition to the £91 million already spent during the periods between 2023 and 25 in dioceses, urban and post-industrial and coastal communities. And just recently, Mr Speaker, at the last General Synod meeting, it marked the 40th anniversary of the landmark Faith in the City report into tackling structural deprivation.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Over the last few weeks, I visited Winton and Parkstone Community Pantry at the Winton Christadelphian Church, supported by Fairshare, and the Sanctuary Project at St Andrew's Church in Kinson, which has a Trussell Trust supported food bank. Now, both churches go out of their way to support our community members in need. So can the Commissioner join me in paying tribute to the churches and their volunteers, and will she outline what more they can do to support the cost of living and isolation in our communities?
Mr Speaker, the churches are cornerstones of all of our communities, and I want to congratulate the clergy, volunteers and congregation of St Andrew's Church in Kinson and the Winston Christ Adelphian Church for their hard work and contributions supporting the community pantry and the Sanctuary Project. Mr Speaker, across the country, churches are delivering around 31,000 community projects, including 8,000 food banks, 4,000 parent and carer groups, 5,000 lunch clubs and 3,000 community cafes. These programmes offer practical support, companionship and advice to those facing hardship, demonstrating the Church's ongoing commitment to serving and standing with all of our communities nationwide.
Good job.
Thank you. St Nicholas's Church in Shepperton, in my Spelthorne constituency, made an application under the listed places of worship scheme to get the VAT back, 16 grand on essential repairs that they have made. And they got an auto reply saying that the scheme has been used up and there's no money left. So will the, on behalf of the Church Commissioners, could they please entreaty the government to look again at this application and see whether we can get the VAT reclaim made?
I'm not quite sure it's relevant, actually. Yeah, don't worry about it. Well, let's move on. Douglas McAllister.
Please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you. Whilst church attendance statistics for 2025 are still being collated, early indications suggest that an increase in attendance at Advent and Christmas services. Indeed, churches have reported fuller congregations for carol services, especially for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day services, and this is consistent with the upward seasonal patterns seen over the recent years.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Long-term trends suggest a decline in regular weekly church attendance. However, there was a rise in church attendance across the UK this Christmas, and I enjoyed visits to various churches in Western Bartonshire, not least the Hope Community Church in Clybank and Dalmuir Barclay Church. Can I ask the Second Church Estates Commissioner, Christmas and Easter are often the two occasions when people consider attending church. What can the church do to attract new worshippers as we approach Easter?
Mr Speaker, I want to thank my honourable friend for his question. As I said, anecdotal evidence does suggest that attendance is growing, especially in urban areas and among young people. Now, the Church of England is producing a large number of resources for major festivals in addition to their regular Everyday Faith app. Do download if you haven't, and online services the Church already has. Now, also the Church is producing a variety of resources for the Lent and Easter period, including booklets and reflection activities for individual groups. And I would just encourage all colleagues across the House, as we are in this Lent season leading into Christmas, if you haven't already, do consider visiting some of your local churches during this festive period.
Jim Sham.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Honourable Lady for her response? The trends seem to indicate that amongst the Generation Z, the young people coming through, there's a trend of upwards of attendance at churches, which is good news. We all know that the greatest story ever told is the birth of the Lord Jesus on December the 25th, and the fact that he was crucified and died for us to forgive us our sins and get us to heaven. That's a wonderful story. The Honourable Lady knows that. I know that. Indeed, I think everybody in this House knows that. And we should be telling many people about that. But the trends seem to indicate an upward trend of attendance. Is that not good news for the greatest story ever told?
What should he call it?
I couldn't have put it better myself, Mr. Speaker. It is the best good news story that must be shared, and we will continue to lift up our voices and share that great story.
That's awesome.
Question number 4, Mr. Speaker.
What should he call it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with your permission, I would like to group question 4 and 7. Now, despite the horrific and truly devastating situation in Palestine, Christian communities continue to be steadfast and resilient in the face of war and destruction. Last month, the bishops of Chelmsford, Gloucester and Norwich made a joint visit, and their visit highlighted the severe pressures facing Christian communities across the region. Now, sadly, attacks and intimidation continue, including the destruction of farms and olive groves, and the IDF and settler militia attempted to shamefully obstruct pastoral visits made by the Archbishop of York to Christian families on the West Bank during his last visit. Now, we know that despite all these atrocities, it's so important that we continue to have long-term engagement and supportive visits to this region.
Mr. Speaker, the Israeli government's new vetting rules have halted much humanitarian work in Gaza. The Palestinian Church Committee has urgently appealed to churches worldwide to intervene so aid can continue. With local churches and faith-based agencies stepping up their support, can the Commissioner update us on how the Church is strengthening this appeal and helping ensure Gaza is not left without vital assistance?
What should he call them?
Mr. Speaker, can I just commend my honourable friend for being such a strong voice on this issue. Now, the Church shares the concerns about how the hostile new vetting restrictions and how that has really disrupted humanitarian operations in Gaza, which are adversely affecting both church-based agencies and also international aid programmes. The Church continues to work closely with the Diocese of Jerusalem and partner agencies to ensure aid reaches those that most need it. Now, the Anglican presence in Gaza centres around the Al Ali Hospital, which despite significant damage, remains one of the only functioning health facilities in North Gaza.
Tricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Cardinal Pizzaballa, recently said in relation to Palestine that peace and reconciliation are beautiful concepts, but they risk remaining mere slogans if they are not accompanied today by concrete actions, gestures and testimonies that physically demonstrate the possibility of rebuilding trust. Does the Commissioner agree with me that Christian churches are ideally placed to work with other faith communities to lead that rebuilding of trust going forward?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And my honourable friend really makes an important point, because it's about how the Church works across its faith-based organisations to be the leaders really in terms of peace. But I should say that the Church does work closely with the Diocese of Jerusalem and the Anglican Communion agencies, providing education, healthcare and employment across the region, other countries, ensuring that there is cooperation across the entire Christian community. And as I outlined in my earlier point, for example, in Gaza, the Church is working with the Anglican Communion there in terms of their support for the Al Ali Hospital. I would just also point out some of the work that they are doing in the West Bank. And this assistance is being delivered through the diocesan schools and the Princess Basma Centre and also local health centres. But through financial support, advocacy and coordination, with Church working hard to maintain medical care, humanitarian assistance and pastoral support for all Christians and Palestinians affected by this crisis.
Number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, members and their teams should be supported to manage and address the increasing volume and complexity of work being placed on us all. Managing email inbox is a huge task, we all know. Parliamentary Digital Services has been working with members to understand how we could harness technology to help us filter, prioritise and manage our correspondence, our casework. I know that the Parliamentary Digital Services are happy to further support my honourable friend in that work.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for that answer. And I believe that Parliament can and indeed must use AI to improve our productivity, but it must be used securely, ethically, effectively and in the public interest. And with a poll by Brunel University saying that 80% of the public reject the idea of AI assisting parliamentarians or replacing our judgment, can I ask him what progress has been made on shaping Copilot, which is the only AI we are allowed to use, to reflect Parliament's priorities rather than Microsoft's, and specifically on the inbox management that I've raised and he has mentioned.
Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend is right to keep on raising this issue. The foundation of the guidance to members on the use of AI is the need to have a human in the loop. The Parliamentary Digital Service is in ongoing discussions with Microsoft to shape the use of Copilot to meet the members' needs. Our digital service must continue looking at the potential applications of AI to support all of our work, so either Copilot or another solution from elsewhere can be tested for all of our benefit. Can I also say to the honourable member, if she wishes, she can join our committee the next time we meet the PDS management team to look at how we can better support members.
Right, Dave McHillier.
Number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Client Board's recent report recommends a way forward for restoration and renewal. This contains Phase 1 works, including 7 years foundational works for the full programme. These preparatory works can begin once we have approval from both houses. A final decision on the preferred delivery option is required from both houses no later than 2030, and the main R&R works could begin in 2032.
Mr. Speaker, in modern times, this has been being discussed since 2016, so we're on our 10th anniversary of discussing this issue, which has actually been an issue for 40 years. And I disagree with the Honourable Member for Bridlington and the Wolds about going back to the drawing board again. And I wonder if my right honourable friend has any idea of when the vote will be, because if it's in 2030, that's after the next election. And I can see the same old arguments about we have to revisit this being rehashed again and again, where we have a building riddled with asbestos, at risk of fire, and something, frankly, that once works begin, my staff and I will no longer be in the building because of safety issues.
Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, can I wholeheartedly agree with my right honourable friend? She's right, we must make progress. We have these costed proposals ahead of us now. The work is necessary. We have an iconic building, home of our Parliament, but it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We currently spend £1.5 million a week maintaining and repairing the palace, and there's a considerable cost involved with every year of delaying delivery. We must move forward. I hope the Leader of the House will let us know when we can have the discussion and debate on this important matter.
Please, Mr. Speaker.
O'Dover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Church of England has expressed heartfelt sorrow and regret for anyone who have been hurt. The national church institutions are engaging with a range of stakeholders, including, and most importantly, those people who were directly affected.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Tuesday, the Education Select Committee held a public evidence session on historic forced adoptions and heard how, over many decades, unmarried mothers were shamed and coerced into giving up their babies for adoption, a practice driven by the policies of the state and delivered by charities and religious organisations, including the Church of England. Do the Church Commissioners agree that victims, mothers and adopted children are owed a full and formal apology from the Church for its role in this scandal? I heard what my honourable friend said, but only a formal apology will begin to heal the wounds of this horrible scandal.
Marcia de Cordova.
Mr. Speaker, the Church recognises the profound pain experienced by many mothers, adoptees affected by historic forced adoption practices, and it is sobering to hear the accounts from mothers and their children whose lives have been adversely affected by what happened to them in maternity homes, including those that are linked to the Church of England. But I just want to reiterate to my honourable friend that the Church has expressed its heartfelt sorrow and regret for any person that really has been impacted by this practice. And I would just add to that, if my honourable friend is willing, I'm very happy to meet with him.
Jane Caplan.
Question number 9, please, Mr. Speaker.
Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given her journey from Cornwall, I can quite understand why my honourable friend asks this question. The Commission recently endorsed recommendations from our participation team to improve the school visit booking process and the use of our travel subsidy. Schools from her area will have extra time to apply. We want to encourage greater participation from schools furthest away from Westminster by increasing capacity through our education service.
Jane Caplan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm so pleased that these schools furthest from Westminster are going to be prioritised with time to apply for those parliamentary trips. It takes 6 hours at least to get there for Cornish schools, which means they have to take a number of days in London, which is why their visits are rare and often in the summer term when they interfere less with formal exams. Could the Chair confirm that children from remote and deprived areas will be helped to surmount those barriers that they have to get them to this place?
Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the new booking process, which will be launched in September, will ensure that regions are allocated visit opportunities to ensure no region accesses more than their fair share. Consideration has been given to the circumstances of Band C schools, those furthest away from Westminster, who have a clear preference for summer term access due to the long distances that they travel. The education team will weight Band C visit opportunities to favour summer term so that the booking opportunities best meet those schools' needs.
Rinda Just.
Number 10, please, Mr. Speaker.
Marcia de Cordova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Anglican Communion is deeply alarmed by the worsening humanitarian catastrophe described by regional bishops as almost unbearable. Christian communities are among the hardest hit and are facing mass killings, sexual violence, famine, and millions of people have been displaced. Churches and properties have been seized, burnt and destroyed. And the Archbishop of Sudan briefed MPs and bishops before Christmas and said the conflict has created the world's largest hunger and displacement crisis.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this year I attended the Open Doors World Watch List launch at the request of my Wolverhampton West constituents who were gravely concerned about the situation in Sudan, and the event confirmed the extreme levels of persecution against Christians in that country, with reports of forced conversions, physical punishment, destruction of churches and sexual violence. Given that the conflict situation in Sudan seems to be getting worse, with the country rising nearly 10 places on the Open Doors watch list in the last 5 years, can my honourable friend please outline what steps are being taken to supply international aid and support to the Christians being persecuted in Sudan?
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I attended the launch of the Open Doors watch list last month, and I agree the testimonies that were shared by those who have fled persecution was both powerful and moving. Now, the Bishop of Leeds has visited Sudan extensively, and he has repeatedly raised these issues facing the Sudanese people in the other place, and also has done so directly with government. And he held a debate specifically calling on the government and international community to secure a ceasefire, to ensure humanitarian access and protect civilians. Both the Diocese of Leeds and Salisbury hold a formal companion league with the Diocese of Sudan. But, Mr. Speaker, the Church stands with the Sudan Christian population and all who are suffering and calls for a renewed global attention to this horrific conflict.
Right, that completes those questions. We now move on to business questions. Acting Shadow Leader of the House, Joy Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House give us the forthcoming business?
Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, the 2nd of March, we'll have the second reading of the Representation of the People Bill. Tuesday, the 3rd of March, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, will make a spring forecast statement, followed by consideration of Lord's amendments to the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Bill. Wednesday, the 4th of March, will be Estimates Day, the fourth allotted day. There will be debates on estimates relating to the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the Ministry of Defence and the Department for Business and Trade. At 7 p.m, the House will be asked to agree all outstanding estimates. Thursday, the 5th of March, proceedings on the Supply and Appropriation, Anticipation and Adjustments number 2 bill, followed by a general debate on contributions of Commonwealth troops in World War I, followed by a debate on a motion on the future of palliative care. The subject for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee, and Friday, the 6th of March, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 9th of March includes Monday, the 9th of March, consideration of Lord's amendments to the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. Tuesday, the 10th of March, second reading of the Courts and Tribunals Bill. Wednesday, the 11th of March, remaining stages of the Finance number 2 bill. Thursday, the 12th of March, general debate to mark International Women's Day. And on Friday, the 13th of March, the House will not be sitting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a pleasure to be doing business questions and responding to the right honourable gentleman who, like myself but more grand, was a chief whip and much respected and revered and sometimes feared by members of this House. And I'll be honest, Mr. Speaker, even I was terrified of him, and we're not even in the same party. So it is a pleasure to be here today. And as we reach the 4th anniversary of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, it is important that we restate our unwavering support for the people of Ukraine. We must never abandon them. And I know it's been a challenging few weeks for the Labour Party. We've all been there. They've come to realize what the British people long understood, that we have a Prime Minister who has U-turned on every principle he held and every promise he made. A Prime Minister elected on a promise not to raise taxes on working people. Then he raised them. A Prime Minister who promised to be pro-business, but and he has become the most anti-business Prime Minister of modern times. A Prime Minister who promised to raise standards in public life, but is presiding over an ever-growing mountain of government scandals. Yeah. The grown-ups are back in charge, no more sleaze. How's that going for you? Whilst the Prime Minister stumbles on, his ministers are now out of control and out of their depth. And the British people are paying the price. Let me start with the Justice Secretary. This week, we saw he intends to pursue his reckless plan to cut jury trials, a principle that has existed for over 800 years, a principle he wants to wreck without proper debate in the House. So will the Leader of the House give me as a categoric assurance that the changes to the Justice Secretary wants to make, that we will have time to debate in the House before we get to May? And now, let me turn to the Education Secretary of State and Equalities Minister. There can be no justification for the delay in providing guidance on single-sex spaces. The Supreme Court ruled a year ago that biological sex defines a woman, a fact that most people knew without needing a judge to tell them. I don't know if the Education Secretary, deep down, still doesn't agree, but the inaction must end. So will the Leader of the House confirm when the guidance will be laid before the House and grant a debate in government time on the unacceptable delays and risk it has proved to women and girls? Now let me turn to the Chancellor. This week, the Chancellor's entrepreneurship advisor shamefully said that Britain doesn't need more restaurants, laying bare what we already knew. This government is determined to tax our hospitality businesses to extinction. So, will the Chancellor apologize for her advisor and sack her, or back her and agree with her anti-hospitality stance? Will the Leader of the House grant a debate in government time on our pubs and hospitality so that members, at least on this side of the House, can have a debate and show their support for the hospitality sector? And we want to move forward making sure that this crippling tax burden is removed from the hospitality sector moving forward. And Mr. Speaker, it is now clear that we have a Prime Minister with an out-of-control government buried deep in scandal after scandal, failure after failure, broken promise after broken promise. A Prime Minister without principle, a Prime Minister without purpose, a Prime Minister without a future, and the British people deserve better.
Leader of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the Honourable Lady for her questions and for her warm welcome. But let me gently warn her that soft soap will get her absolutely nowhere. Let me join with her in expressing our continued support for Ukraine. This week marks 4 years since Putin's full-scale invasion. The government remains steadfast in its support, as did the previous government, for the people of Ukraine. And this week we announced a landmark sanctions package against Russia. We will, Mr. Speaker, stand with Ukraine as long as it takes to achieve a just and lasting peace, which underlines the importance of NATO and, frankly, the foolishness of any party in this House who wants us to leave NATO. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will wish to congratulate Team GB on their most successful Winter Olympic Games ever, and send our best wishes to Paralympics GB ahead of the Paralympic Winter Games starting on the 6th of March. Mr. Speaker, I also want to send my condolences to the family and friends of Harry Barnes, who passed away last week. He diligently served as MP for North East Derbyshire for nearly 20 years. I also wish to send my condolences to the family and friends of Martin Butler, who was the co-founder of the Terence Higgins Trust. And as so, Martin supported the Trust for 5 decades and fought for LGBT rights, and it's undoubted, Mr. Speaker, that his legacy will live on. This week, Mr. Speaker, Ofgem has announced that electricity bills will come down for millions of households as a result of the action that we took in the budget. And as we've announced, Mr. Speaker, we have announced major changes to the SEND system. We're putting children and young people first. Every child with additional needs will benefit from a better, more tailored support with SEND support in every school and community. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to wish all those celebrating a happy St David's Day on Sunday. Let me now turn to the remarks of the Honourable Lady, and let me begin with her, I thought, fairly churlish remarks about the Prime Minister, because what she failed to mention, because he is doing such a good job, I'm pleased the Honourable Gentleman acknowledges that, that inflation is falling, that interest rates have fallen 6 times since the general election, retail sales are up, wages are up, and the economy is growing. So I think that is a record upon which we should be proud. And let me turn to the question of the Prime Minister's integrity and just draw the comparison, Mr. Speaker, to the integrity of my right honourable friend with the fact that the Honourable Lady was one of the very last people in the redoubt with Boris Johnson, not joining others in holding the former Prime Minister to account. Let me turn now to the Courts Bill. I've already announced, Mr. Speaker, the second reading of the Courts Bill. There will be plenty of time to debate. I will bring forward the next stages in the usual way. And similarly, with the guidance that she refers to, we will be bringing forward, we've committed to bringing forward that guidance, and we will do, and there will be time for a debate of these important matters, but it is important that we get it right. In terms of hospitality, Mr Speaker, there will be further opportunities to debate these issues when the Finance Bill returns, but let me just remind the House that under the previous government, 7,000 pubs closed, and she refers to that as the support of her party for pubs. Goodness me, Mr Speaker, what would it be if they hadn't supported those pubs? But we're not going to take any lessons about hospitality from the party opposite.
Chris Blow.
Speaker. My constituent Bethany is 27 and has spent time in various residential care units with at-home support provided by Worcestershire County Council. During that time, she's experienced unexplained injuries and neglect, resulting in health problems and weight loss. Her family have submitted various complaints about this poor treatment, but the council will not provide a final response to their complaints and have not replied to my office's multiple requests for this to happen. In fact, they are still trying to reclaim fees from the family whilst the complaint remains unresolved. Can the Leader of the House advise me on how best to escalate this distressing case when the County Council refused to engage?
Leader. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I first of all express my deepest sympathies for the case that my honourable friend raises. His constituent, and indeed all of our constituents, deserve better than what he has outlined. And if he sends me the specifics, Mr Speaker, I'll make sure that it's taken up with the relevant minister.
Will be Dean Liberal Democrat spokesman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And can I join the Leader of the House in his comments he made about Ukraine? It's clear that Vladimir Putin underestimated Ukrainians' resilience. He underestimated Europe's willingness to stand by Ukraine, and he will find out that we will all stand by Ukraine right to the end of this war. I'd like to move on to the cost of living, Mr Speaker, and how it's been piling pressure on people for years. And this has meant that people have been plunged into debt. And they're into debt via various bodies. Citizens' Advice and people like Step Change offer advice on how to get out of those debt situations. One of the things that they commonly raise with me, and I see it in my own inbox as well, is the aggressive debt recovery actions of those in the public sector. So if you fall behind on a council tax payment, often councils are quite quick to cancel your existing payment plans and order that you pay a fine, and that get to the stage of bailiffs quite quickly, often within 6 weeks. And this is different to what happens in the private sector, where they're more heavily regulated. They need to show more meaningful engagement with residents, offer payment plans, and get to court action much later. I see it again in the case of Department of Work and Pensions. We've already spoken in this place about the carers' allowance overpayment scandal and the way in which those people were chasing payments. But I've had examples in my inbox in the last couple of weeks of somebody who rose to £10,000 worth of debt with DWP due to errors on DWP's part. And they started getting chased aggressively for this. And of course, they can automatically deduct payments from universal credit almost immediately, up to 15%, leaving the resident with no understanding of what's happened in the past, let alone how they're going to manage going forward. And of course, there are new powers that the government's seeking to be able to go into bank accounts directly and take payments. And it's going to be extremely worrying given the errors that DWP have made in the past. And so this doesn't only relate to DWP, I think this relates to all public sector bodies, so I'm not quite sure who the relevant minister to put this to is, but I would appreciate if the Leader of the House could engage with the government and see if they can get a more sympathetic and understanding debt recovery process across public sector organisations.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I first of all thank the honourable gentleman for his remarks on Ukraine. It is important that every party in this House stands with Ukraine. It's a pity, however, that is not necessarily the view shared by everyone in this House, and that is a disgrace. He's right to raise this matter of debt recovery, because debt recovery must be fair to everyone, and if you fall into debt, you must be treated fairly and supported to get back on your feet. That's why we are reforming the enforcement sector to safeguard debtors and creditors alike whilst building a more sustainable future. It is a question of balance, however, Mr Speaker, because any Secretary of State has an obligation to protect public funds and to ensure that wherever possible overpayment and penalty debt is recovered. But they should be recovered as quickly and cost effectively as possible without causing undue financial hardship to debtors. So I will draw his remarks to the attention, starting with DWP ministers, so that they've heard what he said here today.
Natasha Adams.
I recently had the pleasure of visiting Coloma Convent Girls' School in my constituency, where students are campaigning on the vital issue of debt relief for developing countries and what this nation can do to tackle it. They highlighted the stark reality that 3.3 billion people live in nations that spend more on servicing debt than on health, infrastructure and education. So will the Leader of the House join me in thanking the teachers, students and staff at Coloma for their work to highlight this issue, and will he make time for a debate on the growing global debt crisis and the UK's role in supporting meaningful debt relief?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I thank the honourable friend for raising the work of Coloma Convent Girls' School and their campaign, and certainly join her in thanking the teachers and staff of the school. The government fully recognises, Mr Speaker, the pressure that many developing countries face, and we are committed to delivering an international financial system that supports development needs and helps countries address their debt vulnerabilities. And I'll ensure that the Foreign Secretary hears my honourable friend's words.
Bob Blackman, Chair of the Backbench.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Leader for announcing the business for the next 2 weeks. And can I make a plea to him and to you, Mr Speaker, for the Estimates Day debates? We had 7 excellent bids, had to choose 3 of them, but time will be compressed in those debates. So I hope that a very high bar for UQs will be initiated and the government will not put on statements on that particular day.
Help! Don't put as many in from the government side.
I don't think I've submitted a request for a UQ for a very long time, Mr Speaker.
Next week.
I might do next week. But in addition, the business in Westminster Hall on Tuesday will be a debate on strengthening community cohesion, which might be quite appropriate after the by-election today, followed by, on Thursday the 5th of March, 2 debates, one on the importance of local museums, followed by a debate on World Book Day. On Tuesday the 10th of March, a debate on important sale of fur and fur-related products. And on Thursday the 12th, the Liaison Committee have a Northern Ireland debate, followed by a debate on the government support for carnivals. And on Tuesday the 17th of March, will be a debate on productivity and economic growth in the East Midlands. Now, Mr Speaker, in business questions, there's frequently raised the unfair service charges that are implemented by companies across the UK. But I think I've got one that tops the lot, because in my constituency we have a development called Stanmore Place, which has a mixture of housing association managed property and 798 private leased properties. This is managed by St Edward's Homes and have a managing company called R&R. Now, due to the incompetence of R&R in the management company, they failed to actually deliver the costs of heating for the shared services for the last 10 years. However, they've now decided to re-invoice those individuals who've paid their bills. Going back, they've generously said that they won't invoice them from 2015 to 2021, but they will invoice them from 21 to 26. Now, apparently, Ofgem are changing the rules so that this will not be allowed in future. They can only go back 12 months, which is reasonable. However, Ofgem are only going to change this in 2027. So at the moment, in this particular case, and across the UK, we are going to have the Wild West show in terms of backbilling. So I know that the government is looking, obviously, at service charges, particularly on leasehold reform. Could the Leader, therefore, encourage ministers to make sure that this practice is outlawed immediately?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the honourable gentleman for his work on the committee, his committee, and indeed the work of the committee. I'm pleased to hear that a number of very good bids came forward for Estimates Day, so to that extent the system is working. But as he will know, it is a question of balance. We want to make full use of the time on that day. and therefore having 3 debates may be challenging in terms of time, but it certainly should ensure that we use the whole of that time. And previously that was not always the case, but I have heard his request around statements. It's a matter for the government, and I will see what we can do. Let me turn now to services charges, and as he has said, Mr. Speaker, we are determined to take action to address unfair and unjustified